The war had raged for decades, a bitter conflict between the Terran Federation and the Zorathi Dominion. Worlds burned, fleets were obliterated, and countless lives were lost. But for Captain Elara Voss, the war had always been personal. Her homeworld, Elysium Prime, had been one of the first to fall to the Zorathi. She had watched as their sleek, black ships descended from the sky, raining fire and death upon her people. She had sworn vengeance, dedicating her life to the Federation's military, rising through the ranks with a singular purpose: to destroy the Zorathi. But now, as she stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eclipse, staring at the holographic image of the Zorathi commander before her, she felt something she hadn't expected. Doubt. The Zorathi commander, a tall, imposing figure with crimson scales and piercing yellow eyes, regarded her with a calm, almost serene expression. His name was Kael'thar, and he was one of the Dominion's most feared warriors. Elara had faced him in battle before, and each time he had proven to be a cunning and ruthless adversary. But this time was different. This time, he wasn't here to fight. "Captain Voss," Kael'thar said, his deep, resonant voice carrying a hint of something that might have been respect. "I come not as an enemy, but as a supplicant. My people are dying, and only you can save them." Elara's eyes narrowed. "Save them? You expect me to believe that? After everything your kind has done?" Kael'thar's expression didn't change. "I understand your hatred, Captain. I do not ask for your forgiveness. I ask only for your help. A plague has swept through our worlds, a disease unlike anything we have ever encountered. It is killing millions, and our scientists are powerless to stop it. But your people, your medical technology, is far more advanced. If you do not help us, the Zorathi Dominion will fall." Elara felt a surge of conflicting emotions. On one hand, the thought of Zorathi suffering brought her a grim satisfaction. They deserved it, after all the pain they had inflicted. But on the other hand, the idea of an entire species being wiped out by a plague, it was horrifying, even if they were her enemies. "Why should I care?" she asked, her voice cold. "Your people brought this on yourselves. Maybe this is just the universe balancing the scales." Kael'thar's gaze didn't waver. "Perhaps. But if we fall, who will stand between you and the Kral'nath?" Elara's breath caught in her throat. The Kral'nath were a savage, warlike species that had been held at bay for centuries by the Zorathi Dominion. If the Dominion fell, the Kral'nath would sweep through the galaxy like a tidal wave, consuming everything in their path. The Terran Federation would be next. "You're lying," she said, though she wasn't entirely sure she believed it. "I am not," Kael'thar replied. "The Kral'nath are already massing on our borders, waiting for the moment we are too weak to resist. If you do not help us, they will destroy us, and then they will come for you." Elara turned away, her mind racing. She wanted to hate him, to dismiss his plea as some kind of trick. But deep down, she knew he was telling the truth. The Zorathi were many things, but they were not liars. And if the Kral'nath were truly on the move, "Even if I wanted to help you," she said slowly, "I don't have the authority to make that kind of decision. The Federation Council would never agree to it." "Then do not ask for their permission," Kael'thar said. "Do what you know is right. Help us, not for our sake, but for yours." Elara clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She hated him for putting her in this position, for forcing her to choose between her hatred and her duty. But in the end, there was only one choice she could make. "Fine," she said, turning back to face him. "I'll help you. But if this is some kind of trick, I swear I'll make you regret it." Kael'thar inclined his head. "Thank you, Captain Voss. You will not regret this." The journey to the Zorathi homeworld was tense. Elara had ordered her crew to stand down, but the presence of the Zorathi ships, escorting them was a constant reminder of the fragile truce. She spent most of the time in her quarters, poring over the data Kael'thar had provided on the plague. It was as bad as he had said, a virulent, fast-acting disease that attacked the Zorathi on a cellular level, breaking down their immune systems and leaving them vulnerable to even the most minor infections. The death toll was staggering, and it was only getting worse. When they finally arrived at the Zorathi homeworld, Elara was struck by how different it was from what she had expected. She had always imagined it as a dark, foreboding place, but instead, it was beautiful, a lush, green planet with towering mountains and vast, shimmering oceans. But as they descended to the surface, she could see the signs of the plague's devastation, abandoned cities, mass graves, and the haunted looks on the faces of the Zorathi who still lived. Kael'thar met her at the landing site, his expression grim. "Welcome to Zorath," he said. "I wish it were under better circumstances." Elara nodded, her own expression equally somber. "Let's get to work." Over the next several days, Elara and her team worked tirelessly alongside the Zorathi scientists, analyzing the plague and searching for a cure. It was grueling, frustrating work, and there were times when Elara wanted to give up. But every time she felt like quitting, she would see the faces of the Zorathi who were suffering, and it would renew her determination. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they had a breakthrough. One of the Federation scientists, a young woman named Dr. Lena Carter, discovered a potential cure, a synthetic antibody that could neutralize the plague's effects. It was risky, and there was no guarantee it would work, but was their best shot. Elara presented the findings to Kael'thar, who listened intently before nodding. "Do it," he said. "We have nothing left to lose." The first trials were conducted on a small group of infected Zorathi, and to everyone's relief, the cure worked. The plague was halted in its tracks, and the patients began to recover. Word spread quickly, and soon, the cure was being distributed across the planet. As the days passed, the death toll began to drop, and the Zorathi started to rebuild. Elara watched it all with a mixture of pride and unease. She had done the right thing, she knew that, but it didn't make it any easier to accept. On the day of their departure, Kael'thar came to see her off. "Captain Voss," he said, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. "You have saved my people. I will never forget what you have done for us." Elara nodded, her expression guarded. "I didn't do it for you. I did it for my people." Kael'thar inclined his head. "Regardless, you have my thanks, and my promise that the Zorathi Dominion will never forget this act of mercy." Elara didn't know what to say to that, so she simply turned and boarded her ship. As the eclipse lifted off, she looked down at the planet below, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. She had come here as an enemy, but she was leaving as something else entirely. Back on Earth, the Federation Council was less than pleased with her actions. They accused her of overstepping her authority, of risking the lives of her crew for the sake of their enemies. But Elara stood her ground, defending her decision with a passion that surprised even herself.